discovered by the committee in the audited financial statements of NNPC from 2017 to 2023. And those discrepancies have led to misinformation to the Nigerian public and beyond. At the first instance, we could not get it going for reasons earlier on explained. The second instance, we had the external auditors here without the NNPC in attendance. And of course, the external auditors said they were constrained for the committee to carry on that day with the exercise. And in the wisdom of the committee, we decided to fix yesterday, the 17th of June, 2025, as the date for both NNPC and the external auditors of NNPC to appear before the committee. We couldn't hold it yesterday because NNPC called to seek the understanding of the committee to today. We are here today to look at the issues. May I know if NNPC is here by, of course, the representatives of NNPC or the Chief Finance Officer of NNPC or the Group Executive Officer of NNPC? You're here? Okay. Okay, NNPC is represented. The external auditors are also here. Fantastic. So can we have you to take your rightful seats?
Don't be out of order. If you inform this committee as to why the MD or GMD is not present today, and then the committee will, by their grace, through the chairman, give him that particular. We are setting this so that it will be the standard. It is always the standard that has been set for all the committees of the National Assembly.
We called them on to administer first the oath and then introduce themselves, and then we take it off from there. But you have all heard. At the end of the day, after the oath is administered and you introduce yourselves, of course you are going to tell us why the chief executive is not here. And if it is acceptable to us to carry on without him, we do. Otherwise, but definitely for obvious reasons, we shall carry on today so that this issue does not continue to linger in the public domain, which may further send very wrong signals. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Yeah. Sir, is a mark of respect. There is only one chairman here today, Senator Ahmed Wadada Aliyu.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and honorable members.
I
Your name?
do solemnly affirm
that the evidence I shall give
before this distinguished committee
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth. That the submission I shall make to this committee, including all documents and annexures, are factual, genuine, and reliable. So help me God. Please sit down.
NNPC from 2017 to 2023. But the key issues, which of course not limited to, are on the accrued expenses and the receivables, which are reflected in the books of NNPC. The books here I am referring to the audited financial statement of NNPC already published. The figure of the accrued expenses are is 103 trillion, while the figure of the receivables is 107 trillion. So in total, figure-wise, you are talking 210 trillion naira. These are the two issues we shall talk about today. And they are reflected in the audited financial statements of NNPC. On the question leaflet that we have, there are questions 8 and questions 9. But distinguished colleagues, before we go on to those questions, you remember at the last appearance of the external auditors of NNPC, I did ask a question which wasn't really answered, which was not really answered. That is for the external auditors to explain to the committee the difference between NAPIMS and NNPC. That question is still expected to be answered by either NNPC itself, the external auditors, or the duo of them. This morning, the committee received a document sent to it by NNPC, which further explains in their own wisdom. It goes beyond explaining, but defending the figures of the accrued expenses and the figures of the receivables. I'm sure distinguished colleagues are all in receipt of this document, which to this committee has further complicated the issues. Because by the document sent to the committee by NNPC, it means either NNPC is denying or changing their approved 2023 audited financial statement. Because the items contained in the document sent to the committee today are not in conformity or in agreement or in tandem with the items contained in the audited financial statement. And as far as the issue at stake is concerned, the audited financial statement is as good as the Bible or the Quran of the issues today. So it's like shifting the goalpost in the middle of the game. But we're happy that NNPC is here, the external auditors are here. But though the external auditors of NNPC are 4, SAIO is not here or represented. Oh, you are here. You just came in. Okay, thank God. There is no penalty for coming late. Otherwise, we charge you. Well, distinguished colleagues, these are the issues for today. And I leave the floor to our colleagues. Let's not forget that on the accrued expenses, what put together, make up accrued expenses are the retention fees, the legal fees, and the auditor's fees. So we can, question 8, any colleague can ask that, because that is what is on the, or make up, that's what make up the accrued expenses. They can just go ahead to answer. Okay. So NNPC, accrued expenses of 103 trillion, which of course was informed by the retention fees, and retention of course is 5% of total contract sum. We will need you to tell us those contract sum, those contracts and the contractors that were awarded the contract. The second is the legal fee. What were the legal engagements that led to that? And then, of course, the auditors, they are here. We will know if they have taken what is rightly theirs or not. That is the question on, question 8 on the accrued expenses before we go to the receivables. And then any other question that my distinguished colleagues deem fit to be put across. Thank you.
We must first engage ourselves with is the reply of the NNPC from number 1 to 9. We need to have a common understanding of what is strategic alliance versus JV partners, what is a sundry vendor, what is employee vendor. Once they give us this, they can now take each one of them and explain how strategic alliance JV partners, for example, accrued 102 trillion 901,965,000. So by that order, by the time they give us a recap, just brief summary of what it is, then each one of us will have a fair understanding of where they are coming from. And as a matter of fact, this is not just for us. This is for the Nigerian public, for those who watch us from their homes, to understand what is the problem, and people will now appreciate what we are doing. They will also appreciate what the NNPC is trying to do. So if I may suggest, sir, it's fair for some of us, for the Nigerian public, to have an understanding of what these items are.
Expenditure and whatever that can form part of this. I want to know if all of what they have written, let them explain if we can situate them in those
9 items.
If you cannot, then if they are spending money or into alliances, I guess they will have the legal documents and contractual documents to so provide.
Thank you. The issues are at stake and the reason for which we are conducting this, the faith of this document is in abeyance. We are NNPC and external auditors are here because of discrepancies that we have discovered from their audited financial statement, which is in the public domain already. So any document that contradicts what is contained in their audited financial statement is in abeyance here. We have no question. As far as we are concerned, it's just a paper. We are not even looking at that. Yes. Because the issues are all on, about, and around their audited financial statement. Otherwise, the external auditors wouldn't have been here.
That is what
Yeah, so we have their audited financial statement, which is already in the public domain. And do not forget, distinguished colleagues, gentlemen. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. So we are limiting ourselves to what is or are contained in your audited financial statement. And the public is looking at us. It is not unlawful for NNPC to seek executive session with us. But since the question has been thrown out there, there must be some level of response from them before anything. Otherwise, we will be seen to be compromised. Thank you.
The numbers that have been read out for the accrued expenses and the receivables include the JV cash calls that were yet to be approved by the appropriate committee, the OPCOM at the time. So essentially, those two numbers essentially, essentially wash out, and the numbers, if you look at the audited financials for the year 2022, it shows a particular number, and the retention fees, legal fees, and auditors' fees represent essentially what that number is. But for 2023, and if you look in the receivables as well, you'll see that the receivables number for 2022 were also not significant. At the time that the 2023 financials were published, the governance requirements are to reconcile those numbers, which are essentially essentially wash out, had not been met. So the accrued expenses were shown separately, which are the cash calls, and then the payments for the cash calls, the accrued expenses were shown, the cash calls were shown in the accrued expenses. And then the payments already made by NNPC for those cash calls were shown in the receivables. And that is why you have those high numbers. Subsequently, OPCOM held, and those numbers would wash out. So essentially, what was reflected, the description that was shown, basically assumed that those numbers, the debits and the credits, which essentially should wash out when the governance procedures have been completed. So it assumed a reconciled position. So the 103, 102, and the 107 essentially are made up of JV cash calls that had been requested by the JV operators, and JV cash call payments that have been made by NNPC, which were yet to be reconciled because the governance procedure was not done at the time. And that is why we see the description showing reflecting the fact that those items, those two items, wash out because they're basically two sides of the same transaction, which is the cash calls from the JV partners and the settlements by NNPC. Thank you, sir.
To the seeming inability of NNPC to reconcile JV cash calls and JV cash call payments. The number of JVs the government has with the various oil majors, I would guess it cannot be more than 20. In fact, 10? 7? So if we're talking about calls from, say, 10 JVs and payments against those calls, it should not be a difficult reconciliation to have been made. In any case, these payments and calls would represent the largest items on the balance sheet for NNPC, if I'm guessing correctly. And therefore, these amounts would deserve special attention when calls are made and when payments are made against these calls. What I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, is that this is the major part of NNPC's assignment, managing the JVs and the calls. But I want to go further, Mr. Chairman. The statement is made that governance procedures were subsequently completed. I think the expression was OPCOM was held. And subsequently these figures would wash out, meaning that reconciliation was possible and was then done. So two questions arise. The first is that the balances we have here, 102, 107 trillion, how many years of calls and payments does this represent on either side? And two, if the reconciliation has been done subsequently, how far after the year end was it done, and why would it not then be a post-balance sheet adjusting event where the numbers are of such significance and the balance sheet is bloated on both sides by 100 trillion? It must be an adjusting event. In fact, I would suggest that the auditors should not have signed off with these large amounts on both sides of the balance sheet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The issue of number 6 and number 8 of the analysis of the 2023 accrued expenses, which refers to the retention, quite some amount of money. I think that it was required that you would give us the breakdown of that. It's a percentage of the contracts, and so we would have loved to have what is actually constituted that 44 point something trillion. And also to also have your remark on the accrued expense of the legal fees and provisions, which also quite a huge sum, 68 trillion plus, to confirm if the auditors have actually been paid this sum of money, and to receive some confirmation to the Public Accounts Committee on this. Thank you.
The JV and the cash crops. And for some time, I know it has been a challenge for the NNPC to do that. But since this is a published financial statement and it's out there, that it wouldn't have been proper to say that reconciliation was not done when the expected outcome, which we know between the time of completing the audit and the time of the sign-off would have been completed, not to have been disclosed separately as a note. Is it still reconciled, or is still outstanding as it is now in 2024-2025?
On the status of the reconciliation, OPCOM has since held, and there was a reconciliation, but because the governance process to approve the reconciliation had not held, that was why they were shown separately. OPCOM, the several OPCOMs, that's the respective OPCOMs have since held, and the reconciliations have been signed off. And then on the details of the retention, ma'am, we don't have that here, but it's something that can be provided to the committee. Senator Dafinone, sir. Yes, the primary role of NAPIMS is to manage that relationship, the JV relationship. The reconciliations, like I said, were completed, but for some reasons, the OPCOM had not held at the time. So that was really what that occurred. The OPCOM meeting is where the reconciliations will be signed off, and then we'll recognize the cash calls and apply the payments made by NNPC on those cash calls, and then reflect the net amount.
Stated that accruable expenses consist of detention fees, legal fees, and other accruables. Now, can we know those persons or companies that NNPC is owing that amount of money, up to the tune of 403 trillion, as at December 2023? The group of persons or companies, whether they can be disclosed, like this company, so amount. I think I'm making some point.
Yeah.
Yes. So agency, it will help us in knowing the extent of liability of each body.
Dafinone is a professional in the financial field. And of course, whoever has been following the financial space of Nigeria knows the name Dafinone. Senator Dankwambo was at one time Accountant General of the Federation of Nigeria. My deputy here that asked the last question is a lawyer. The major difference between them and me is I am a politician. No, you are professionals in your... I am, and then as a politician, I'm going to ask this question.
Go ahead, my chairman.
Is it right for reconciliation or for an exercise that awaits reconciliations for that exercise or the literature or the documents that relate to that exercise be published before the reconciliation is done? That's my own question, because all these technicalities, I'm not there because I don't, in fact, they are confusing me the more. But
just like a politician,
yes,
that is confirming a minister that was asked to go and bring some documents.
Exactly.
They say you have confirmed him.
Yes.
What if he fails to bring the documents?
That's it.
So what happens to the confirmation?
So
I want to talk as a politician so that you understand.
yes, now. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I can follow on that, because the 103 sets off against the 106 unless they have done that reconciliation. So without that reconciliation, that set-off cannot be assumed. Even though the figures are separately stated here, there's a presumed set-off once you have the figures supposedly matching but in separate sides of the balance sheet. Now, my further question, sir. Even though the OPCON meeting held subsequently, that OPCON meeting is presumably to ratify between partners that they all agree that the amounts are agreed. But the auditors have a job to have checked that reconciliation before signing off. So the question is now to the auditors, did they see the reconciliation and have they signed off on the reconciliation and assumed that there is a set-off that would be approved by OPCOM to enable them to state the figures as they have done in the accounts? Thank you, sir.
I'll let our auditors respond to the last question.
Is that what you are telling us?
Yes,
It's available and we can, we will make that available.
Public Accounts Committee, thank you so very much. We've actually listened very attentively and we quite recognize the very professional questions, quite coherent. It would be nice, if you don't mind, very briefly for us to give some background leading to its peculiar 2023 financial statements. It is the first full year financial statements prepared by NNPCL. Otherwise, what you would have been seeing would have been two separate accounts, the ones for NAPIMS and the one for NNPC, in which you won't see issues relating to cash calls and the rest of them because those were dealt with separately in the Federation's financial statements. And in this same year, we see NNPC transitioning from its old accounting system to the new accounting system. Typically, what happens is that we will confirm that by the end of the year, like our distinguished senator mentioned, these JV operators would have sent in their statements, maybe pending approval by OPCOM, wherein the numbers will come in. Even when the numbers come, because they are rolling, it is in the following year you adjust, because being something you do year in, year out, they more or less net out. Now, for this particular 2023, why the numbers appear quite irregular in relation to the comparative is that net off was not done. What happens is that if this JV partner is owing NNPC, that net amount is treated as a receivable. If the JV partner is owing, NNPC is owing the JV partner, it will be treated as payable. And Honorable Distinguished Senator, like you mentioned, it is a cumulative thing. And once that is done, the notes will show you whether it's from 2016 or 2015 on an annual basis and for the current year on a monthly basis. And that exercise is already being done, considering that they really needed to pull out the financial statements, such that in the 2024 financials, you see how this will be restated, and it's one of the reasons they're insisting that these reconciliations and the numbers will need to come in, so that we know, unlike what you have in 2023, where it's an overpayment, i.e. a receivable, it will go on its own on a net basis, on the basis of the JV partner as a receivable. Where it's a payable, that's net payable by the Federation, NNPC, that will be shown in the financial statement. So that's clarification we need to put across to the members.
My own is revolving. This explanation you have given, is it contained in the audited financial statement so as to educate and enlighten the public that what you have in the public domain does not represent full disclosure? There is XYZ that are not, yet to be brought to bear. Is it contained there? if this committee had not made these discoveries that informed the reason or reasons why you are here today, would the public be aware of what you are saying? That's just my own, not necessarily for you to answer now. Maybe after you can put them together. I see. Are you here? Are they all here? Eh? Okay. But the FCC is not here. NFIU is also not here. Okay, it's all right.
Chairman. And you are not privy to the schedule or to the reconciled figure that wash off the balance sheet. We assume that if you have not done it for a reason, then the financial statement should have been qualified.
That's the question I was asking.
Yeah. Okay, but now introduce yourself.
Mr. Chairman, NNPC and auditors, from my little summary, I think it will save us time if we try to just find a solution to where we find ourselves now. Because from what I've understood now, exercises have been carried out that can challenge the integrity of what you have done. And by so doing, some of the actions that have been taken, are they legitimate? Are they legally, done in the best interest of your professional work as auditors? Because you've received questions from some of our colleagues here. If it is work in progress, why were some of these documents published, or why did you sign off on them? And I will still beg to hear from NNPC. The chairman asked earlier the difference between NAPIMS and NNPC. We have our reason why we want you to clarify it to the public, so that when you do that, then we can come up with our findings and our questions we have in that line. And lastly, what is the frequency of the monthly reconciliation you do? The frequency. Yes, to them.
Between NAPIMS and NNPC. NAPIMS is a division of NNPC.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and distinguished senators. Let me please go back again to the very beginning to clarifying the issues. There is a distinction between, as per what we're presenting, reconciliation and net off or disclosures in the financial statements. For us, as auditors, alongside with NNPC, the real issue isn't that of reconciliation per se, in the sense like we mentioned. Since you know these are annual things, you pick in the interim figures. By the time the next year's accounts are done, even the auditors of the GOs, they would have incorporated the adjustments, and that comes in automatically when picked by NNPC. The fact is that because this is the first time you've seen NNPC take on what probably before was federation, what you are seeing here, like even the accrued expenses you're talking about, legal fees, these are not legal fees as incurred by NNPC as that corporate entity at Powers. Under this 2023, that will mean NNPC's share of all the legal fees by the 15 JOAs, SPDC, ExxonMobil, TEPNG, etc. Because they're sending your returns, your share, 60% or 55%. When you aggregate them, you take them. It may well be, if we say this is 45 billion, NNPC may not be up to 5 million of it as per legal expenses incurred by it here. But these others were the ones done by the JOA partners, which is paid them by way of cash call, and so it has to account for it. That's one explanation. Now, for the net off we're talking about, by the time we go into these details and give you the net position of each person, what you will see as receivable will be a different amount. And with all due respect, if you are allowed to do net off and it's not done, it may not, how do I put it? It may not be that it will impact the net sum, but the separate disclosures you're doing under receivables and payables may be enlarged. But when you take them on individual basis, JV partner by JV partners to those that are receivables and those that are payables, the net amount will be one and the same. So the issue of we either qualifying because they say the reconciliation has not been done doesn't quite arise, because those people sent their returns, and we know it's a rolling thing. By the following year, where the numbers have been signed up by outcome, it gets built in automatically into what you take in as your next year's performance. Yes. So what is the case in this 2023 is that, unlike when it was being accounted for by NAPIMS, they were not net, the calls made in the year by all the partners were not net off with payments, so as to show net position for each operator.
No, but what we are saying, sir, preparation before the sign off. If they say it's not reconciled, you should state in the financial statement that you are signing off, but the account is not reconciled.
Mr. Chairman, can I go a step further? Sure. Some of these payments and calls go back to 2016, which tells me that NAPIMS did not prepare any accounts, and you have inherited balances you've brought on board and have tried to sort it out subsequently.
Yes,
I can clarify this quickly. Remember, at 1 year, I think it was Dr. Kachiku, a special exercise was done wherein arrears of cash call of up to 10, 15 years were cleared by special. When we say that the amounts are outstanding since 2015 or 2018 or 20 whatever, it does not mean that they've not been admitted, but because they have not been settled. For as long as the Federation and NNPC is not paid its cash call, we can't write it off. We'll keep carrying them as cash calls payable. That's not saying that they've not accepted them or the numbers haven't been reconciled. But I'm telling you that the numbers you're seeing today is cumulative. It's not just for 1 year, because NNPCL inherited the cash calls as per the provisions of the GOA, because it was made mandatory. If you're taking an asset, you must take the cash call liability related to it. You can't pick the asset and leave the liability.
Questions arising from Senator Dafinone, Senator Angwambo, and co. We must know that we're dealing with a matter that took place in 2023, and this is 2025. And if this matter had not been raised, this matter would have been swept under the carpet, as it were. And therefore, when Mr. Daffo was asked to respond to the answers he has provided to this committee, Mr. Daffo himself refused or did not see reason to explain his answers directly to us for the public. When you begin in a public hearing to say 102, to say 103, to say 44, this is not what the public demands from us. You will say 102 trillion, 901 billion, and in this regard, the JVCs from this period are this. How many JVCs? 10 of them? This, that. You will now say the legal fees and provisions that we are seeing it here written, 68 billion, are legal provisions for this, for that, for this year, for 2016, for 2018, for 2019. Then you are sufficiently communicating with us. When you are in a public hearing of this nature, you know, as a matter of fact, we are just ambassadors to an institution of the Senate. We need to take this report back to the Senate. And in the Senate, the basic requirement of some of us is just secondary school. Therefore, it is our job to simplify whatever presentation you are going to make. And while you are communicating to us, the bottom line is we are communicating to Nigerians who are not that technically sound. The attempt by the head of auditors, this fundamental question of NAPIMS and NNPC, one and the same. Mr. Dabo said NAPIM is a division, subsidiary of NNPC. It's a division. A division of NNPC. When, at what time did NNPC and NAPIMS have a joint account? At what time did they separate it? Because from what you have seen, there are duplications from the report of our own discoveries of timelines where you see it, domicile in NNPC account, same figure, same narration, also domicile in NAPIMS account. So some of this rigmarole will not help us as a committee. It will not help the auditors. It will not also help the NNPC. Because finally, sir, I want us to know the NNPC is the inheritance, is our collective inheritance. Whatever we do to stand the NNPC going forward, we are going to have a backlash as a nation. But whatever we do in the interest of the general public of Nigerians, in making sure that the NNPC is no longer that closed entity where you assume it is a no-go area. This particular public hearing, we may not achieve 100% what we do, but we have opened the window for every government establishment to understand that there is no establishment under our constitution that is a no-go area. Every part of Nigeria, every part of establishment, every individual within the Nigerian state cannot claim to be a no-go area because the constitution. You can clearly see it in various sections, section 13, section 60, section 80, 85, that empowers this National Assembly to raise questions to even individuals that are not even associated with government. So there is no go area. For a very long time, the NNPC has been operating as an entity that Nigerians cannot go into it. And therefore, that myth must be broken, and it's been broken. Finally, sir, let's understand all these requirements that Mr. Dapo said, from strategic alliance to JB partnership. Let's have itemized JBCs. At what time is this JBC being given? At what date? And what is the balance that accrues up to 103 trillion? Let's also have the sundry vendor. What is this sundry vendor? How do we have 348 billion on sundry vendors? What time? Then all these things are backed by documentation. Mr. Dapo, when you are coming to the National Assembly, you have to pass through, we say, to the central area before reaching the National Assembly. You didn't come to the National Assembly without passing through some of these things. And that is the way things work. The end just does not justify the means. We have to look at the means and then to the end. So it is important that we put our acts together and be ready to work for and in the interest of this country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Whether the payables or receivables date back to 2016. 2016, date back to 2016. So figures you are carrying from 2016. And you are carrying figures without reconciling, without assuring yourself that these figures are right from that to 2023. And you qualify, you didn't qualify your account in 2023. You give your opinion that the account shows true and fair view on one portion. When you come to the other portion of non-financial, other information, you qualify the statement that you cannot stand with the information provided to you by NNPC. On the same opinion sheet, if you look at the opinion sheet of the statement, when you give true and fair view of the statement, of the financial statement, when you go down to other information, you said you cannot stand, you cannot give your opinion on the other information provided to you by NNPC. Where you need to qualify, you refuse. But why you don't need to qualify, you qualify the statement. You qualify the financial statement. Go to other information you see, what you stated. Then you cannot stand. You cannot give your opinion on this information provided to you. But why you need to do it? Why Nigerians are eager to see whether you qualify the statement or not? You give it to a view of the statement. Now you are telling us that you carry from, and you are not saying that there was no reconciliation. There was no, this calls for real qualification of the statement, 2023. We need to know your opinion. Is it right when you don't have adequate information? We know it's the responsibility of NNPC to give you reconciled information. And why you cannot rely on those information, you need to qualify it. That's the standard. If you cannot rely on any information and they gave you the information, then you have to qualify it. But once you give true and fair view, that means you trust the information, you accept the information that is given to you is trusted and accepted. So why can we now say a different thing now in the eye of the public? Thank you.
The question is, my own question, is it lawful for a corporate body to have its own audited financial statements separate from its own divisions? 1. 2, NAPIMS and NNPC had over the years, within the given period, produced 2 different audited financial statements of NNPC separate from that of NAPIMS, up to 2022 or thereabout. Then from 2022, they now stopped. NAPIMS stopped producing its own audited financial statement. So, to me, and for me, to me as an individual, for me as a representative of the people, this is confusing. And most of the people I represent are not technically informed. So I need to really be better informed so that I can disseminate these, ambiguities.
Distinguished Senator Jia, my name is Dapo Shegun, CFO NNPC, and earlier on I had been put on hold, and I won't therefore come here to tell you what's not true. I just wanted to say that there is no deception in what I'm saying, because as a professional, having been put on hold, there is no cause for me to spew deceptions. That said, sir, I'd like to say that the Petroleum Industry Act, which this National Assembly did one of the greatest things ever by passing into law. The bill was passed into law by this National Assembly. basically is the reason why up to 2022 NAPIMS published a set of accounts separate from the financials published by NNPC, the corporation at the time. By the provisions of the PIA, maybe I need to give some background. Before the PIA was passed into law, NNPC existed under the NNPC Act. That was the NNPC Corporation. And NAPIMS was a division of NNPC. That is why the head of NAPIMS was never a managing director. Now, the confusion, or the seeming confusion, will be that NAPIMS was publishing a separate set of books from NNPC up until 2022. And then following the passage of the PIA, that ceased. I'll explain that. NNPC, prior to the passage of the PIA, acted as an agent of federation in managing the JV relationships, an agent of the federation. And that agency role was performed by NAPIMS. And so, NNPC at the time could not include the books of NAPIMS, or the books published by NAPIMS, let me put it that way, could not consolidate that. Why? Because those were the books of the Federation that NAPIMS was managing as an agent of the Federation. So the books you referred to as the financials of NAPIMS were books reflecting the agency role of NAPIMS. So they were not, the assets and liabilities therein were not beneficial assets and liabilities of NAPIMS or NNPC. It was owned by the Federation. And that was the reason why you saw those books. NAPIMS, for the benefit of doubt, is not an incorporated entity. And that's why you won't see NAPIMS Limited or anything like that. NAPIMS, which is currently referred to as NUIMS, was and is a division of NNPC Corporation at the time and NNPC Limited today. So that explains why you saw the books of NAPIMS in its role as agents of the Federation, published separately prior to 2023. Upon the passage of the PIA, the assets and liabilities of the Federation as it relates to the JV JV arrangements were transferred from the Federation to NNPC Limited. And at that time, I mean, pursuant to that, there were no more books of the Federation to be published by NAPIMS, because the assets and liabilities that were either accounted for by NAPIMS on behalf of the Federation were no longer on the Federation's books. They had been transferred 100% to NNPC Limited. So effective 2023, those assets became beneficial assets of NNPC Limited, along with the associated liabilities. And so, there was, from there on, only one set of books to be published. That's the explanation for the cessation of the books published by NAPIMS, effective 2023. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and distinguished senators.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dapo Shogun. So within the period in question that NAPIMS had separate financial books from that of NNPC, raises questions. But for having said what you have said, PCL, which is your group, stopped charging, direct production cost, which therefore cast doubt on the authenticity of the charges between 2017 and 2021. And this is all reflected in the audited financial statement. So for now, NNPC and the external auditors, can you please explain to us the basis of charging direct production costs between 2017 to 2021 to the tune of over $5 trillion naira, equivalent of $14 billion? Again, what did NAPIMS produce within the period of 2017 to 21 that NNPCL stopped producing in 2022 and 2023? This, whether or not this is answered, NNPC as a corporate body was not well guided by its external auditors. 2, at this period in time, that the government of Nigeria under the stewardship of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that is committed to changing the narratives in Nigeria. And of course, to change the narratives, it needs all the funds available. So we cannot sit here and be talking about over 200 trillion naira that cannot be clearly, the faith of which cannot be clearly ascertained. Mr. Dapo, I feel for you. Honestly, I feel for you because all this happened while you were not there. But because government is a continuum, that's why you are here. Otherwise, you knew nothing about all this. Be it as it may, Nigerians should know that NNPC and its external auditors between the period 2017 to 2023 has over 200 trillion to account for to Nigerians. As events unfold, we may eventually have to put our report to the relevant anti-corruption agencies to continue to investigate and get these monies refunded to government. It's as simple as that. But for now, that's what we will have to say. But as events unfold, maybe if for some reasons you are able to clear these issues, so be it. But I don't know how that can be done because the audited financial statements have long been in the public domain.
200 trillion is erroneous. Because when you have a negative number and a positive number, they don't add up. The polarities are different. When you add a negative to a positive, you come up with a net negative or a net positive. If you had 103 approximately and 107 with different polarities, you'll get a net of 4. So,
Mr. Chairman, sir, may I interject at this point? Mr. Dapo said that the illusion, I'm sure that he meant to say the assumption, but not use that word.
I said allusion, not illusion, sir.
Okay. Even then, it is wrongly used here, please.
I didn't say illusion, sir, I must say. I said allusion, which is, you ascribed it to be. It's different from illusion, sir.
Thank you.
Number, you end up with a net negative or a net positive. Is based on the premise that the two figures net off. Should the two figures have been nettable, then the auditor should have netted them off. That they didn't shows that you could have 103 positive and 107 negative in the accounts, both standing independently. It is a responsibility of the auditors to have reconciled the figures such that the net-offs are proven and the figures are netted off. That they did not do that leaves us now with the possibility that you have 200 trillion in the accounts.
As I said earlier, sir, the reconciliations were performed, but there's a governance step which is called upcome that had not taken place. What the auditors will do under the circumstances is to circularize the parties, the JV partners, which they did, which is even more reliable than what we as NNPC would have told them. In doing that, they would have reached out to each of the JV partners and said, NNPC claims that you cash called X amount, and NNPC also claims that it's paid you Y amount during this period. And that is what will give what gave the auditors the comfort, because they got information from the counterparty of their clients, confirming that yes, we cash called X and NNPC paid us Y. And so to that extent, it's basically a case of the same party on the same transaction saying, I billed you a certain amount on the same transaction and you paid a certain amount. But because the governance process had not been concluded, the netting off did not happen. But individually, those amounts were confirmed by the JV partners. The amount the JV partners billed as cash call and the amounts NNPC paid to the JV partners as payment for JV cash calls, without circularization done, confirmed by the JV partners. JV partners, you billed NNPC this amount and NNPC paid this amount. The auditors had comfort to sign off on the financials. I must say, this was the first time NNPC was reporting the assets and liabilities that were transferred as a result of the provisions of the PIA from the Federation to NNPC Limited. And so what was hitherto reported as assets and liabilities of the Federation in the books of NAPIMS, and what was hitherto reported as the assets and liabilities of NNPC in the books of NNPC Corporation, had become merged into one set of accounts of NNPC Limited. So that is what did happen, sirs.
In all of this that we are saying, I don't want to be pedestrian, because if I want to be pedestrian, I will be saying that you claim as at, your AFS claimed that as at 31st December 2022, so and so, that your accrued expenses was 620.065 billion. But by as at December 2023, the accrued expenses grew to 403 trillion. In addition, that is 102.783 trillion, representing 16,577% growth. Let me take that further to say that, do you know that based on the exchange rate of 907 naira to $1, that will accrue to like 114 billion US dollars. And as at that 2023, the foreign exchange reserve of Nigeria is just at about 3 point something. When this administration came into being, it was just about 3 point something. Whereas, also, can I even ask a simple question that what is even the net income simplicity as at 2022-2023 for NNPC?
For NNPC, all that we did this afternoon before now is to understand where NNPC is coming from, what is the auditor's role, what did they do right, what did they do wrong. But we already have a prepared question. These prepared questions comes from the sitting chairman. You raise some of these questions right now to them. Let's just limit ourselves. We have had them, we have understood them, but we have questions. No. Because you wouldn't understand them, as it were, because we wanted to have the general public establish the background, the foundation. But because we have already have questions arising from the presentation they have presented, arising from the document they have presented, I will beg you, sir, go through these questions one after the other. Let them supply answers. At the end of these proceedings, we will know what to do.
All the questions here are questions drawn by the committee, and each of them is referred to what is contained in the audited financial statement of NNPC. With due respect, please.
We are speaking almost, that is the same thing from our discoveries. Some arising from answers gotten right now, right here, from the auditor and from the NNPC. We have prepared questions. Rather than now to go on a voyage, let's concentrate these questions. Let's raise them here. Let them answer them.
Be it as it may. Are you ready to take the questions one after the other, as suggested by Senator Abdul Ningi here and today and here?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The receivables was all contained in the invitation, and those who were prepared to answer. Questions outside of that will need us to go back and prepare the answers, sir.
Those groups, we want to know them, and each amount. To me, that is the basis. That is where every question is tilted to.
Were all extracted from the annual, audited financial statement of NNPC. So, I really don't know.
Chairman, sir, I came into the role And that's why I said...
You came from outside.
You've been part of NNPC. You have been in the system.
I've been part of NNPC, but I was not the CFO. I said I came into the role, sir. Again, I'm on
CFO,
oath.
and he's talking today as CFO.
I'm talking
so
as CFO, so I would need, because I'm on oath, I wouldn't want to postulate. If there are questions that I can't answer, then the committee would have to kindly give me time to find the answers and come to you. Again, I'm saying I'm on hold, and I have to say the truth and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Well, we will take them now to whatever time we're able to stop. And some of the questions, you will find them reoccurring. Yeah. Since it is the wisdom of my leader, Senator Abdul Ningi was my leader in the House of Representatives and deputy chairman at a point of this all-important committee and deputy leader of the Senate. Fortunately for him.
Still under you, Mr. Chairman.
But unfortunately today, he's under my command.
Still under you.
The leader, sir. Otherwise, I would have said if I take one question or two, then somebody takes, rather than...
Read them out.
Okay.
Read them out.
Okay, NNPC/external auditors. Question number 1. Can you explain to this committee the difference between NAPIMS and NNPC? That's why I said these questions will be reoccurring because this question had been asked before. That is 1. 2, under same is, what is the justification for preparing a separate audited financial statement for NAPIMS for more than 3 decades? And why did you discontinue from 2022 to 2023? Some of the answers had been provided, How can you convince this committee that at the point of stopping annual financial statement for NAPIMS, that all the assets and liabilities in the books of NAPIMS were transferred to NNPCL? 4, all under 1. From the cover pages of the annual financial statements, do you not see that both accounts belong to NNPC but fraudulently manipulated by writing National Petroleum Investment Services under Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation? NAPIMS cannot be an acronym for NNPC. This was designed to mislead. In the understanding of the committee, this was designed to mislead and deceive the nation for several decades until 2022. Question number 2.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I'm observing them writing frantically. I think it would be fairer to let them have a copy of the questions.
That's what I said earlier.
Rather than...
But we agreed that we explain to this committee why you deceived the nation over the years by declaring operational losses and minimal profit for NNPC company, while at the same time concealing humongous profits by NAPIMS, which you illegally decided not to consolidate with group accounts of NNPC, despite being merely a division or a department in NNPCL. And this question, from 2017, we have, a table there that clearly substantiates or justifies the question. Under question 2, sub 1, NNPC/external auditors, please tell the committee what exactly happened that a department in NNPC declared huge profits between 2017 to 2021, totaling 9 trillion, while NNPC, of which NAPIMS is part, declared potpourri of losses and minimal profits totaling 68 billion loss. I hope you understand. NAPIMS, as a department or division of NNPC, within the period 2017 to 21, declared profit of 9 trillion naira, while NNPC, the mother company or the corporate body, within the same period declared losses of 68 billion. This needs to be explained. Sub 2, under question 2, sub 2, NNPC, please, can you explain to this committee why retained earnings of NAPIMS should be reducing, melting away or disappearing without official declaration and payment of dividends? As at 31st December 2016, NAPIMS had retained earnings of 8.4 trillion. And that can be seen on page 58 of NAPIMS 2020 annual financial statement. From 2017 to 2021, NAPIMS declared additional profit of 9 trillion naira. This means that the retained earnings as at 31st December 2021 should be 17.4 trillion naira. Can you therefore explain why you declared only 9 trillion? See page 57 of NAPIMS annual financial statement for 2021. Now, Senator Abdul Ningi, I'm seeing the wisdom in you saying we should take the questions one the other.
I agree with you.
Experience is the best teacher.
I agree with you.
Yes, and in fact, it is getting clearer. Yeah, it's better. You want to continue?
No, I thought you are done.
No, this is just number.
Yeah, go ahead. But I have three.
No, you read the 3, then somebody should read because my throat is getting.
That's why
Number, can you convince this committee on the justifications of deducting the subsidy from crude oil revenue instead of petroleum products revenue only?
4.
My question to you is the way and manner you change or manipulate subsidy figures, making it appear chameleonic, sorry. It changes. Well, anyway.
Changes with time.
My question to you is the way okay. At page 62, note 9, 1 of your 2023 annual financial statement, you stated that PMS under recovery subsidy in bracket and energy security expenses for 2023 was 3 trillion naira. At page 80 of the same annual financial statement, you stated a different position. January to May under recovery was 3.3 trillion naira. And August to December energy security expenses was 1.8 trillion naira. Total of under recovery and energy security expenses for 2023 was 5.1 trillion naira. Can you explain this contradictory position on subsidy as stated at page 62 and page 80 of your 2023 annual financial statement? Reference is here. This question emanated as a result of what is contained in your annual financial statement. The question we have here is informed by what is contained in the annual financial audited financial statement of NNPC from 2017 to 2023. Every question here, none just came from outside the books. Your various contributions that led to these questions being put together, and making yourselves always available as responsive, not only members of this committee, but responsive senators, responsible and responsive senators. And to specifically thank you for today, because the Senate is not in session. And also thank you for your contributions in all the questions, particularly those of us that are of finance background. Senator Excellency Senator Rankwambu, Senator Dafinoni, Senator Aminu Iya, Senator Peter Gia. And then from the legal angle, I want to respectfully thank, appreciate and commend my deputy here, who I command here, and then he leads me in the chamber. Distinguished Senator Peter Nwoboye. City boy, you have brought your marine experience to bear, Mr. Dapo Shogun. Thank you for being here. And then what you made available to the committee. To the external auditors, we are on. You are also appreciated. We are all working for the same cause and the same results. But really and truly, to the public, you can always count on us. At the end of the day, any which way it goes, the Nigerian project will be better off for this exercise, or better off from this exercise. NNPC / your external auditors, you are given 1 week from today to supply this committee answers to these questions, which will now determine the next line of action by this committee. 1 week from now will be, today is Wednesday, next week will be date? 25th of, so today's sitting is hereby adjourned to the 25th of June 2025 at 2 p.m. 3 p.m. Yeah, after plenary.
I have to lead you well. You have not given them 1 week. Because you have not given them the questions yet. They are going to have the questions
today.
Yeah, from the ground.
You are what? So it will be forwarded today. So 1 week.
Your time starts running. Time starts now.
Okay, I call for adjournment.
Motion for adjournment.
Seconded. Thank you. So it is hereby, the sitting is adjourned to the 25th of June 2025.